Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Modern Merchant Podcast. My name is Austin, and I'm your host. And with me today is Travis Merrier, CEO of Flxpoint. And in today's episode, we have a special guest. This is Jeff Campbell, co-founder and president of aiCommerce. Jeff, thanks for jumping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Us too. We've had a few conversations in the past and super stoked to get you on. We know you have a good footprint in the e-commerce space. So really just to get us started, all the viewers and listeners out there, give us a quick little personal background on yourself.
Yeah, from a personal background, I've been doing digital marketing and media for over 20 years, started back in really before Google AdWords was around, and grew through watching the rise of Google, then the world of social and Facebook, and kind of the third wave of Amazon. And that really led me to move from founding my previous agency, which was heavy search and social, to aiCommerce, which is very focused on marketplaces. We certainly still are the full digital performance agency, but specializing really in e-commerce and marketplaces. So an exciting time to be in with all the growth of Amazon, the dominance, and the other players that are getting in the space that I'm sure we'll talk plenty about.
Perfect. So sticking on the Amazon train for AI, and I'm sure maybe you guys do some other things outside of just marketplace. I saw something else that you guys help out with, like buying e-commerce businesses as well.
We do, and I think that's what really makes aiCommerce unique. So we started as business owners, as the direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand, and grew a brand to over $50 million. Meanwhile, we had a bunch of people in the industry that we knew coming to us and saying, "Hey, help us out. Help me do what you guys did with your brand for ours." And we're like, "Cool. Well, that's kind of an agency model." So we started in an agency model, and then we found more brands in kind of that aggregation space that wanted to be owned or partially owned. So while I run kind of the agency, the services side for marketing, my partner is out there buying brands and running brands. And that, again, gives us that differentiator for when a client's like, "Hey, I need help with a customer service arm. I need a warehouse." We have those things, right? So we can bring those into the mix beyond just kind of the media and marketing services. That's our main day-to-day.
Excellent. Yeah. So I was actually just about to ask how aiCommerce started up. And it's funny that you said that, because that just seems to be a reoccurring theme with either agencies or platforms. I started out selling myself, found something that didn't work, and then started helping others out. So that's really cool to see. And were there any other, I guess, like inflection points that you guys saw whenever you started aiCommerce back in? And when did you guys start the agency?
Yeah, so we started technically we started in 2020 for the agency, and then had kind of been doing this with some contractors and on the side for a few years prior to that for the different brands.
Gotcha.
So in terms of inflection points and just along the way, again, it was going to a lot of shows, honestly, and talking to the agencies that were out there and the folks that were doing this. We had a pretty unique approach in terms of looking at product level and SKU level profitability. And going back to my experience with a lot of the major brands, I talked about my previous agency. I was managing about $4 billion annually in US media spend. So we were top 3 with Google, top 3 spender with Facebook, managing wonderful, great brands from Dick's Sporting Goods to Lowe's to Apple to FedEx and Mercedes. So these big blue chip clients, and they were great. Most of those clients all sort of had give me a $6 ROAS, give me a $12 ROAS goal. And we'd work to hit that singular goal. Where we were with aiCommerce and some of our own brands are looking and saying, "Hey, if you've got one product that's $20 and one that's $200, those cost of goods sold are extremely different. And the gross margin dollars are extremely different. So it would be very short-sighted to say, "Hey, give me a $6 ROAS for all that." And it's like, well, wait, let's really dive into the shipping and selling cost, the cost of goods sold, the cost of your agency if you need one, right? Bake that in, and then knowing the algorithm of Amazon rewards you organically in your rankings when you're taking advantage of all of their advertising spend, both the quantity of spend you're putting through their platform, but also all the different ad types and betas and things like that. And even when you're starting to push some of your Google and your Facebook traditionally from your website, but maybe trying and testing a little bit into Amazon, they see that outside traffic. So that's really where we're like, hey, I think we're onto something. There's not a lot of folks looking at product level break even or margin levels. And that's really our focus. So we've built everything from strategy to technology around that focus area. And again, probably another big differentiator on top of us owning brands. And it's wild, right? I mean, Google, you're spending $1 billion with a year. And if you would ask them a single question for your large paying client that you're working with on SEO, they literally slam the door, hang up the phone, and good for them. I mean, it's a true, honest separation of church and state. Yeah. Amazon, not so much. It is definitely directly correlated and related. So again, it's just crazy over the 20 years to see the different players emerge and sometimes have some contrast in the way they do business.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that. And when you were saying that they kind of reward you for more use of their ad spend organically, that was interesting. I don't think a lot of people know that. So it's basically them looking at brands saying, you're a good partner. You're driving traffic to us. You're buying ads. We're going to reward you across the entire platform. Sounds as their approach.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, some would say, who can blame them, right? If they're building out all these different things, features, promotion, discounts, lightning deals, the different ad types, the DSPs, like if you're one of their merchants selling, like you're not taking full advantage of their platform until you've kind of tried everything. So, it does kind of build in some incentive and some rewards to try those things, make sure they work as designed, and then again reap some of the benefits and really your profit through that organic side of the mix.
So that kind of brings up a good question. That just kind of popped in. Really, when you're working with a brand, maybe a couple SKUs, right? Anywhere from 10 to 20 SKUs, maybe less. Who knows? But like a smaller brand, right? Would you say that they've got a Shopify store, let's say, and they've got Amazon? They do Amazon FBA. What's kind of the structure there, like the advice there on driving traffic to their store versus Amazon? I'm sure everyone's a little bit different. I'm curious how you tackle that, where it's like you can double down on Amazon and really focus there. But every brand, seems like a lot of brands I speak with are like, I want to get people on my Shopify store. I want to get that data. So I'm curious how you kind of toe that conversation.
Right. There's definitely pros and cons. Where I usually end up is fish where the fish are, and that's on Amazon. People are expecting the Prime guy probably to show up every day, every other day already. They trust the platform, the delivery, your credit card saved in there. Conversion rates are 15%, right? Now on the con side, there's a 15%-ish commission that Amazon's going to charge. You also don't get that customer data, right? So if you want to, follow up with them, it's tough to kind of build that long-term relationship and lifetime value. So, it's usually a recommendation of doing the market research and just seeing, using like Jumble Scout and Helium 10, some of the tools out there, some of the scrapers that we've built that are proprietary, but understanding what are the sales in that category and showing them the numbers and using those to compare to their current website numbers and say, hey, all right, you're doing 30K on your website a month or a week, but you can add like 5 or 6 zeros to that on Amazon. So you are able to get that data. You are able to see what the market leaders are doing. And I always I always look at that data and we make those suggestions and say, hey, you are going to have to buy your way to the top at the beginning, earn that trust of Amazon as you earn it through Amazon's customers. And then you'll start to see those organic listings where the profitability lies start to flow in. And then you're able to kind of look at that total ROAS or that total ACOS efficiency metric to make sure that that's coming to light. But a lot of times, that can be a significant investment, even 3 to 6 months as we talk about a marathon, not a sprint. The websites are great. I wouldn't say stop, using, the Googles or Facebooks for search and social. You still want to appear. A lot of the incoming traffic from your website, when you look at your analytics, is coming from Amazon. So people find you on Amazon, they're doing a little research, they're hitting your webpage as part of that. Try and capture them there. If you have to choose, you want them to convert on your website, there's no doubt. But average website conversion rates, 1 to 3%. And we have clients who say, listen, I'm willing to pay the Amazon fees, their commission, because I can enjoy a 15% conversion rate and just convert on Amazon. And it's a little counterintuitive. You'd think they'd want it, but again, that conversion rate is really the big difference maker between a website and a platform. Even with some of the considerations like losing some of that direct customer relationship data.
Yeah. Since we're on the topic, initial thoughts on buy with Prime button that they just released a couple of days ago?
Yeah, big news. Yeah, for those who don't know, you can now, on your website, add a button that says buy with Prime, and then all of your stuff that's in those Amazon warehouses are then shipped out under that move. So I would say a pretty big move that might open some eyes in Washington around Amazon's dominance. If you're in, BigCommerce and Shopify and some of those providers, probably did not like that news so much. But from a consumer standpoint, as I mentioned, my credit card's there. I'm used to the Prime guy. He knows what door to deliver my packages. I'm probably going to use that. So strong move by Amazon in more ways than one.
Yeah, completely agree. Huge news. People talking about letting the fox in the hen house kind of move, right? Letting Amazon show up on your website. But I agree. I've talked for years about the only thing that individual brand sites are missing is that trust factor. Like you said earlier, the Prime guy is going to show up to your door. Amazon Fulfillment is going to show up every day at a certain time. It's going to get delivered in 1 to 2 days. So as a consumer, I love it. I'd love to be able to buy directly on the brand site and know it's going to get fulfilled. I think Shopify, potentially buying Deliver might be a punch back and give that same kind of trust on fulfillment. But exciting times for e-commerce. There's no doubt, to see how that kind of shakes out in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and as a consumer, I just don't want to take the time to enter in my credit card information. I can never remember that 3-digit code, and it's like, I can just click one button, I'm golden. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. What, Jeff, is there any other trends? That was a good point that you brought up, Travis, about the buy with Prime button, and then Shopify would Deliver. Like, that's been some big ones, at least for us, that we've been noticing, talking about lately. Any other trends in the e-commerce space that you've been, keeping an eye on?
Yeah. A couple I'll point out. One, is the lower price competition, and heavily coming from a certain Asian countries. So I think I saw a stat where it was like 70% of new sellers on Amazon are based in China in the last year. So that's concerning to a lot of U.S. Manufacturers who might have just more expensive supply chains, or are using China somewhere in their development or sourcing process. I think all know that they lack regulation around some IP, and the competitive nature is rough there. But their price had always kind of made you turn a blind eye. Listen, the penetration of retail and digital in China, they're about 55% digital in their purchases. So they're buying online more than they buy in store. US is like 16%. That's kind of the latest eMarketer stats. So they're really good at online and shipping and sourcing, and maybe even some could argue better than what we've done in the US, just because they've dealt with more of it volume wise. So it's a scary thing for a lot of folks to see some knockoffs and some shady practices. We've seen fake reviews. We've seen counterfeit products. Again, some clients will who are storing their if I'm selling an iPhone 11, if I'm shipping in a bunch of boxes, they could be commingled with somebody else selling iPhone 11s in those warehouses. So a counterfeit unit could go out under my account and sell, and that's a real problem. But again, the lower prices are scary. In Amazon, I tell people three things. You have to have the one of the three. You either have to have the lowest price, you have to have some strong differentiators, or a brand that people are really having that trust with and they're willing to pay up for. So ideally, you have more than one of those things. But if you're somewhere in the middle, like so many people, launching on Amazon do, you need to think about differentiators and building a brand. Because, again, those low price competition from abroad, taking out many of the middlemen are going to be your competition.
Yeah. I wonder how much Amazon's going to help with that. Right. And, they're a giant, and I feel like they will put some things in place to help, solidify where their market is. I mean, whether that's protecting the US or not, market in that front, but that's a really good point that you brought up.
But you think about it this way, I mean, Amazon gets paid a % of sale, right? So more sales are happening. If they can sell two things at $10 versus one at $15, they're going to kind of yield to the $20 total. So that's interesting. And you've seen them with China, where they are finding a lot of these new sellers. They've set up shipping lanes and inventory solutions directly for those folks, training specific in Mandarin and other relevant languages, call centers, et cetera. So Amazon's actually doing a lot to bring more of those sellers onto their platform, which is kind of interesting, and I'd say maybe even angering some of their longtime US based competitors that weren't dealing with these folks 5 years ago. Yeah. So it's been an interesting trend for us that we're following closely.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point. And something that honestly I haven't quite thought about myself with what we've been reading about. One thing I want to shift over, kind of, you guys are in the marketplace game, right, for a good bit. And we've been talking about Amazon, this much. Are you guys helping out with other marketplaces? And then going off of that, is there like some emerging marketplaces that people just aren't keeping an eye on and something to kind of keep in mind? Because the reason why I ask this is, we're starting to see, or at least I've started to see, some of our users trying to get on Walmart, right? And like really trying to excel on Walmart. And then we see some of these, grocery brands, retailers that are reselling grocery items that are really doing a good job on Walmart, versus an Amazon. And so I'm always curious, you guys are in the marketplace mix. Like, what does it look like for other marketplaces outside of Amazon? And are there any other ones we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have active accounts and clients on Target, Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond, Home Depot, Lowe's, Wayfair, many more. We're, I think, I think we're cheering on most of them to kind of take a bite, almost like Microsoft Bing against Google. Like, the world needs some competition, so we want to see that and encourage it. I think to date we've been a little disappointed with Walmart. Hoping that that would be a little stronger opponent or alternative. The numbers and the results, have been tougher across our client base. They certainly cater to big spenders. If you have millions of dollars in annual spend, there's some really cool programs and platforms and customizations that Amazon will roll out for you. For the smaller and the mid-market folks, very limited in ad spend, very limited in ad technology. So the types of the ads, the amount of control you have, some of those, buttons and levers that I'd want to push as an optimizer to kind of improve my presence. So, we're again kind of cheering for Walmart and hope they improve their platform more. In some of the recent conferences, talking to some Walmart people, they seem to be focused on making sure that well-optimized products don't need massive ad spend to get exposure, which is somewhat refreshing versus kind of a heavy pay-to-play Amazon model. So we've been watching there. I'd say we're still probably ad supported for most anything that's getting traction. On the kind of emerging space and what we've seen working really well is Wayfair. That's been good for a lot of our clients. And, while home goods is their core, I mean, anything related to home goods or home has been doing pretty well. So, one of our clients is Kids Nightlights. And again, who would thought that did well on Wayfair, but again, seeing some as people are buying kids' bedroom sets or whatever, some good complimentary, and showing that ad at the right time to people in that mindset. We're seeing some good surprises there. So happy there. And then, Instacart, I think is a big question mark, but it's doing really well for some of our food brands. They're rolling out, I think, improved advertising opportunities, improved kind of keyword targeting. There's not a ton of competition there, so CPCs are reasonable. And so performance is, when it's managed, going really well. The big question for them is, post-pandemic, are people still going to use food delivery systems at the same rate or even half the rate? So we're watching for that.
Yeah.
So talking a little bit about multi-channel marketplaces, right? Or multi-channel e-commerce to multiple marketplaces. I'm sure you obviously consult brands on doing this, and they set up a commercial relationship with Wayfair, Instacart, and whoever it might be. Can you talk about some of the things that brands need to be prepared for as they go multi-channel and as they kind of open up their catalog to these new retailers?
Yeah, the pricing strategy is the big one. And again, in lessons learned, if you're a brand that's thinking about really going to all these different places in a decent way, I would think hard about unique offerings. So we've all been to Costco, and we're researching a product, and we're like, numbers are a few off from what they sell over here. It's that type of strategy that you really need to think hard about to make something a little bit unique for everyone. That's just going to save you a ton of headaches and price matching and map pricing and all that as you go out. So that's probably the biggest one I'd call out. Other than that, you get into this mile wide, inch deep, right? There are so many platforms, and again, I've worked with clients with digital budgets well over $100 million, sometimes $300 and $400 million on an annual basis. There's never enough money, even at those levels. So you got to pick your battles. You got to make sure that you are properly staffed. You don't want to just kind of set it and forget it. So pick those battles, and again, try to be instead of a mile wide and inch deep, maybe a inch or 5 wide, and try that mile deep there.
Yeah. When you talk about being almost like adding an exclusive element or being unique to each, is it like bundling, or I guess what are you referring to as far as the pricing strategy and having something that's different than the other channels you might be selling on?
Yeah. So assuming you're not a reseller and you're a manufacturer, you'd have one product, and let's use water filters. And maybe there's just a slight difference in the filter that you're selling to Lowe's versus Home Depot, and you could therefore price them a little differently. And then you'd have the one on Amazon, which is going to demand the lowest price. Well, hey, Amazon's the only place you can find that filter, so I can be a little more aggressive with that price, and maybe Depot and Lowe's when I need to be without violating any Amazon policies.
Got it. Cool.
So one of the last things that I definitely wanted to ask and get in here before we come up on time is, you mentioned it earlier. You work with a lot of these big household name brands. I noticed there's Lowe's, and you said Dick's Sporting Goods, and a lot of these other really big companies working for. I mean, what were some fun things to do? Like what were some maybe some big wins or big losses or just good experiences that you got out of working with some of these like really big names in the retail side?
Yeah, it's been great. So I think the most important, that is probably the hardest to do, is building a brand. And Apple's just the best at that. And without giving away too much, let's just say they're very focused on brand building ahead of things like ROI. The ROI comes if you've got a strong brand, because then you can price higher. So some of those lessons about focusing on differentiators and branding sometimes is going to reward you more than kind of the race to the bottom if you're just ROAS or ROI focused for efficiency standpoint. Another story with a home improvement company is we tested everything. We for search and social, we did a lot of like holdout marketing. So you'd have a group of stores in a couple markets that would be, very similar from a data standpoint. They've got whole divisions looking at this. And, if the only difference is we wouldn't have paid search in some of the markets, and then we could, assuming weather stays the same and some other factors, say any change in sales offline in those stores could be attributed to paid search. So, we went through a lot of that type of analysis to understand how much we should spend and what's the true incrementality of digital media. While it had some great things and we saw true ROI, I still remember the conversation with the CMO and me waving a whole bunch of data around saying you should be, tripling down on your budgets. And he said, hey, listen, if I just looked at the data, he's like, in our print newspaper, it would be a 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew on sale is actually what drives the most people into our stores. Like that's what happens if I look at the data. I'm going to be a Mountain Dew company. And you're just like, oh, all right. So again, the balance of data coming from a guy who looks at data all day and makes decision on data was refreshing to see kind of that bigger concept of strategies. So that, and then the lessons of, media mix modeling. Again, when you can afford the probably $200K a year investment in really understanding the attribution, the incrementality, it's still probably going to be directional at best. It's still going to probably look a quarter in arrears, and it's still not perfect. So no one really has that silver bullet, even these massive companies with big budgets. And like I said before, no one's budgets are ever big enough to pay for all of the, even just keyword searches being made around their products. So don't feel bad to, have 5 or 10% share of voice or share of shelf. It's still a growing digital shelf, and you can still definitely build a business on those lower numbers.
Good point. Travis, any last thoughts on your end or any last questions for Jeff?
Yeah, I was just curious. I came by and I know you mentioned it, but I just saw it just briefly. You're going to be at Retail Innovation speaking, right?
That's right. May 12th in Chicago. I'll be leading a panel of clients that are all 7-figure or higher sellers, kind of sharing what they've learned and advice for others. So yeah, come and see us.
I will. I'm going to be there, so I'm going to come by and check it out.
I love it.
Anything else that we didn't touch on that that we should have, or any other gaps that we may didn't touch on at all?
Well, if you do hit Retail Innovations and see that, I will remind you, it only takes one person to start a standing ovation. But other than that, I think the takeaways are really like you've got a very competitive world of marketplaces now, a lot of new competitors, and really having to understand your cost of goods sold and your profitability at the SKU level is what folks are going to need to do. And again, the marathon versus sprint. Amazon and others aren't looking to make overnight millionaires. They're looking to have good customer service and experiences. If you're running out of inventory after a couple months, if you're changing things that shouldn't be changed, like they're going to wait and see and make sure you're a long-term partner. So again, that's things people have to just keep in mind. And a lot of times it takes investment, just like if you were opening a physical retail store. Rent and inventory, I mean, that could be $100K. And again, I don't think Amazon's model is too different from that sort of investment to really prove out another storefront. So it's been a wild ride. And again, living through the Google, the Facebook, and now the triopoly with Amazon, it's just been crazy to watch. And we'll see who's fourth and next. And then understanding kind of that whole media mix is just a blast. I've loved doing it.
Yeah. I was about to say this year is going to be crazy. Next year will be crazy. Everything's just been kind of hyper accelerated. So it'll be fun to see
we live in dog years, right? Every one of our years in digital marketing is worth 7.
That's so true. That's going to be the quote of this podcast is we live in dog years. That's so true. Yep. Excuse me. So last thing, anybody wants to check out aiCommerce, why would they want to check out aiCommerce?
Yeah, I think finding a partner in this world and a partner that's going to work on a performance basis. So when things sell, when revenue is generated, we get paid, and really not before. Finding somebody that has owns brands, and works with them in all aspects, and again, really can sharpen the pencil on the financials and metrics, and understand this ecosystem and how the trade-offs of paid and organic and ad types and different marketplaces all work. So excited to partner with brands and grow them into the next 50 million plus or more brands.
Yeah. And the importance of data from a data automation platform company, as well as you talking about the importance of data to an extent, is a real important feature to, take a look at us. So obviously anybody out there listening, make sure to go check out aiCommerce, aiCommerce.com. And then obviously if you guys love the podcast, make sure to subscribe and save, and watch us on the next go around up on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and all the other podcast outlets out there. Jeff, thank you for jumping on today. I appreciate it.
All right. Rock and roll, guys. Take care.
All right. See you guys. Thanks, Travis.
Thanks.